Hello and welcome to another fantastic interview. This time my interviewee is Kieran Freeborough. Now, Kieran is the creator of the Fat Loss Academy and he's a personal trainer. And his purpose is to help people remove the paralysis of living in a body that they are not in love with. And he does this by making fat loss simple, by teaching a flexible approach to fat loss and combining his knowledge and experience to help implement positive, sustainable life changes for long-term results. And that's a really key word there, sustainable. How many of us have gone on a diet and it hasn't worked for very long? Now, a fun fact about Kieran is that he is an amateur strongman and has met and been coached by the 4 times world's strongest man, Brian Shaw, who he admires for his methodical approach to all things strongman. I'm so excited that he's really kindly agreed to have a chat with me today to share more about his journey and some insights on fat loss for us. So Kieran, hello, thank you for joining me.
Brilliant, thank you very much. Can I first say, massive congratulations. Not many people get my surname right first go.
Hey!
I just want everyone to know we didn't discuss that prior to. You had no idea how to say it. I'm very impressed.
My little voice was going, say it right, say it right, say it right.
Yeah, I can't. I'm not even sure half my family can pronounce it right. So, well done.
I feel very chuffed with myself now. So, Kieran, just tell us a little bit more about yourself. How did you get to be where you are now?
So first of all, I was overweight as a child. I never actually, as most kids do, I didn't realise I was overweight. It was when one kind friend very kindly pointed out one summer, it had been a while since he'd seen me, that I'd put on a bit of timber. Obviously that came as a shock to me because you kind of forget when you're buying your bigger clothes that they start off baggy and then they get tight. But that combined with my love of sports took me to college and uni where I studied football, sports coaching. But my first year of uni, I then swapped over to a personal training and exercise science degree. And just some of the friends I made there, I had a little bodybuilder friend, a little powerlifter friend, and just a circle of people I was with. It kind of just fed the interest of fat loss and sports performance and how the two can combine.
Okay.
So yeah, mainly just that. My interest in sport combined with being overweight sort of drove me to my passions.
Yeah. Was there a particular reason for the switch when you were in university between the sports and the personal trainer?
Yeah, so I can't remember what injury it was. I think it was doing basketball tryouts, but I hurt myself right at the start of uni and I couldn't do any team sport training. So I really loved football and I really loved basketball. So I did the tryouts for both. Because I hurt myself, I mean, I don't think I was getting into either team anyway. But because I hurt myself, I didn't have the ability to train in a team dynamic. So then I sort of switched across I signed up to a gym, started doing that. One of my housemates ended up on the rowing team. So he started doing a bit of gym work as well. And I took quite a bit of interest from that. And it just to me, it helped my transition and my journey from very fat to less fat, less overweight. It seemed to help more. And at the time I didn't understand the whys. So, I started getting healthier relationships. Funny enough, going to uni, I got better relationships with food and normally doesn't quite work out that way. So yeah, just because of that injury and the people I was around, I then started to enjoy the gym and I decided actually I love coaching people, but the gym had more of a calling to me than the sports did. So it just started to overtake itself.
Yeah. That's interesting. No mistakes. So what in particular about the strongman section? What was your sort of real calling into that?
I mean, as with a lot of people, I used to love watching The World's Strongest Man at Christmas. Whether you like the sport, whether you like the sport or not, everyone knows Christmas time comes, you sit down, you watch these gigantic men move some absolutely monstrous weights. And it was, I made a friend that was in strongman and started watching it, got persuaded to go and try it. And the community, as far as like competition goes, having done football for pretty much my entire youth, it's a very different environment when it comes to competing. It's very tribalistic with football. Like, you hate the other team,
Yeah.
you don't encourage them, you're not honest. Sort of the integrity is a little bit different, in my opinion,
Mm.
with football than it is with strongman. So you're all there trying to beat each other, but you're also there cheering up. You want to beat all the other people there, but you want to beat the best version of them, not just win.
That's a
Um,
good point. Yeah.
so due to COVID, I've only actually managed to compete once
Mm.
in Northampton Strongest Novice, under 90 class. And the guy that won our group, I actually spent 10 minutes before the competition coaching him through how to do the yoke walk, because he'd never touched a yoke before. So, like, on the day of the competition, with the guy I've met and I now know I've got to try and beat, we're sort of helping him learn and preparing him to effectively beat me,
Yeah.
which is how it ended up.
But what a nice mindset, though, and actually,
It's incredible. It's very strange, as I say, coming from a completely different outlook on competitiveness.
yeah.
It was incredible, and that competition just completely, it blew me away. So I got a lot of respect for strongman. I had a lot, but I've now got a lot more.
Yeah.
And it doesn't discriminate. It doesn't matter what size you are, what shape you are. You rock up, you put your effort in, and everyone's trying to help you get better.
Mm.
So it's a very nice environment to walk into if you're actually going to be nervous of going into the gym and training, which you wouldn't think had to look at the people competing at the top level. You'd think it'd be quite an intimidating atmosphere, but I don't think there's a better place to start than strongman training if you're going to look at going down the weights. And it's a lot more cardio based than it looks as well. It's very all round game, strongman.
Okay. So how would one get into sort of training for that? Do you have to have like a specific coach? Is that something you help with, or?
I've not been fortunate enough to coach anyone to do any sort of strongman. I've helped some of my friends do some powerlifting competition preps.
Mm.
But no, typically the people I end up working with are for fat loss.
Okay.
That's the majority of the people. So I've not had a chance to coach anyone for strongman competition yet. It is something I'd love to do.
Mm.
In terms of getting involved, it's find a gym that's got either a strongman kit or a strongman group that comes in and trains, because some gyms, they'll have classes come in. Other gyms are set up specifically for strongman.
Okay.
And just get in touch with someone that's doing it. And as soon as you talk to someone that does it, 99% of them are absolutely amazing people, and just their energy will get you wanting to go in and give it a try.
Oh, nice. I like that. Awesome. So
Yeah.
you mentioned that a lot of your clients at the moment are fat loss based. So how is it? And you mentioned in your introduction, you make this, you help people transform their bodies. What's kind of like the main way? And I think we touched on the word sustainable there, which is always a really key word. So I guess in two parts, how do you help people transform their bodies, and what is it that makes your transformation sustainable as opposed to other ways of doing it?
Yeah. So first of all, what I do to help people is very different based on the person, because everyone's got. I like to think of people as puzzles, and everyone's a different puzzle. Everyone's got a different piece that's missing. So no one person to get sustainable transformation is going to be exactly the same. You've got a key set of principles, but the way I like to try and make things sustainable for people is, first of all, education. It's making sure people understand why they are where they are, and then what needs to happen to get further away from where they are, closer to where they want to go. Example being, if you're overweight, regardless of the reason, it's excess calorie consumption. Everyone, and that's not that you're eating too much. It's just that your calories coming in, or the energy coming in, is disproportionate to the amount that's going out. So you could not eat that much, but if you never get off the sofa, you're still eating too much for the amount your body actually requires to function. And it's just trying to build up that level of understanding. I've got one client I won't name because I don't know. I'm sure he'd be happy for me to name drop him, but I'm not going to.
Let's call him Mr. X.
Mr. X. When he first started with me, it was for fat loss, and he'd done things like the Cambridge diet before, which are very quick, very drastic. They're effectively soup diets, from my understanding. I can't say I've looked into them too much, because as soon as I heard it was a quick fix, I kind of put it to one side. I'm not a fan of them. They've got their time and their place. If you've got certain events and you've got a very short time frame, you're going to have to do something drastic to shift that. I'd never advise it, but sometimes you are going to have to go down that route. Anyway, so he'd done a few of those types of diets. And the first couple of months of working with him, trying to reduce his energy intake, and he likes eating, he likes drinking. So we're trying to manage on reducing the amount he eats, reducing the amount he drinks, but not stopping it, because for him it was never going to be sustainable to never drink again. So there's no point trying to build him a solution around something that he's not going to be able to keep doing. So if it just means him changing up what he's drinking or having a little bit less, I think Elle mentioned on one of the other podcasts, having 2 glasses of wine instead of 6. Or
yeah.
So it's going to be different for every person. As soon as you understand you need to be moving, you need to drink, you try and make everything as simple as possible as well, because simple principles are easy to follow, and they're going to get you, I don't know if you've heard, you'll get 80% of the results from 20% of the work.
20 rule, yeah.
And that's true with your diet, your nutrition, your exercise. So like your daily movement, that's something you need to be concerned about. If you can't get to a gym session, say you're gymming twice a week, that's only 2 hours out of the whole week. It's not going to impact your fat loss all that much. Mentally it might, but from the actual outcome point of view, missing that one session because you've got something really important to get to, if you can tell people that's not going to ruin their efforts, then they're not going to fly off the handles just because they missed an hour of exercise. So yeah, trying to get sustainable fat loss, it's about creating habits that work for each individual and educating people onto why they're working.
Yeah, and I think what you've just said there, Kieran, is really key. This whole, there is a tendency when you first start to do something, you get into the gym or whatever it is, and then, like you say, you miss a session. I think for a lot of people, it does suddenly become, oh, I've missed it. What's the point? I always do this. And they kind of lose that momentum and give up. So I guess it's more sort of like making it part of who they are. If they're a healthy person, then it doesn't matter that they've missed one. They just get back on the horse, so to speak. Do you find
exactly
that? A lot of people?
Yeah, I think the other thing is when people talk about fitness, typically we've got this idea of like cover models that are absolutely shredded to the bone.
Yeah.
And first of all, they don't walk around like that all year round. But secondly,
damn it,
no, they're cheating us. But secondly, they've taken years to develop the habits to get them to that point. They did not start off training 7 days a week, eating nothing but chicken, broccoli and rice. That's all coming with time. First of all, they might have just lowered the amount of alcohol they had. They might have started for the same reason everyone else did, but they've kept going long enough that they've now got to that elite standard.
Yeah.
So the time frames people have in their heads can also dictate whether people stay on track or whether they go off course. Because if they've got unrealistic expectations, when something goes wrong or it's not going to the speed they want, that can force them off. I think a lot of it is going to be expectations and mentality when it comes to fat loss and body recomposition.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's the same theory with the rest of your life, really. We're in this sort of world now where we're very used to instant gratification, and when we don't get that, it's not working.
Yeah.
And I suspect I don't know what your thoughts on this, but I suspect that's where a lot of these quick fix diets come in, because it does, like you said, it does, because it's so drastic, you do see the weight loss very quickly. But then once you stop, it just, because you haven't dealt with the underlying habits that cause the weight gain in the first place, or the emotions, whatever it is, then the fat tends to come back and smack you on the arse, quite literally in some cases.
100%. I mean, that right there with the keto diet, for example, again, another diet that I don't recommend, but it does have a time and a place. You see a massive drop in body weight very early on because of a reduction of carbohydrates. None of that's fat loss, or very little of it is fat loss. Because you've taken carbs out of your diet, the carbs that you store in your muscle cells go. When you store carbs, you retain water weight. So suddenly you've taken out 500 grams of carbs, you might have dropped 1 kilo of weight, and actually that kilo or 750 grams of it, which is 3 or 4 pounds, that's water weight. That's lack of water retention. So your physique hasn't changed. The number on the scales has gone down, so you're happy. You look exactly the same.
Yeah.
But that mental cue of, oh, I've done Summit for 7 days and I've got fantastic instant results. You feel really happy with yourself. But then it gets to the point, the same as every diet, because the process slows down, you think, what am I doing wrong? And sometimes you're not doing anything wrong. Dieting typically is a slower process.
Yeah. And I think as well, I mean, I've done a weight loss 8-week course with ET, sort of based on the whole, what is the weight isn't the problem, it's a symptom of something, and what do you do to help behind that. And actually, one of the things that I say is when you're tracking your progress is stop looking at the scales. Because I'm sure you find this, weight can fluctuate so much depending on, what time of the day it is almost, and how much water you've had. When you work with people, do you work with weight and something else, or do you forget weight entirely and just work on what the physique does?
If I had my way,
yeah.
Because obviously I'm still there to serve people. So if they want to know how much they weigh, I'm going to let them know how much they weigh. And it is, over a long period of time, body weight is a good indicator of how things are going. Just day to day, it's not.
Yeah.
So like if you look at your weight at the start of 8 weeks and then don't check it again till the end of 8 weeks, if that's down, that tells you have dropped body fat. If it's up, you've put on body fat. But yeah, it does fluctuate hugely. Obviously, women, you've got time of the month. Some women can put on water weight as a part of that time of the month, drop body fat, be getting leaner, but you won't see anything for 4 weeks just because of what point of the cycle you're in.
Yeah.
So if you're comparing week 1 to week 2, your weight could go up, but you're feeling leaner and you've got a bit leaner.
Yeah.
It's kind of
psychologically, as soon as you see that number on the scale.
Yeah. It's like, why is everything going wrong?
Yeah.
And then suddenly it's sort of, oh, well, I've ruined it. I've messed up. I don't know how, because I've done everything perfect, but I'm going to go and see what's in the fridge because obviously it's not working.
Yeah. For that comfort. Yeah.
But yeah, I tend to go with measurements.
Yeah.
Measurements and how your clothes fit, to me, if you're looking at physique changes, a much better indicator. And your clothes can't lie. Like if you struggle to put jeans on, then in 4 weeks' time you still struggle to put jeans on. They're not lying.
Yeah.
Whereas if inside of 2 or 3 weeks you can now do them up and they're a bit tight or a bit snug, well, that's progress, because 2 weeks ago you couldn't put them on.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like to
that way.
Yeah, I do like to try. Obviously, it's different if you're working with someone that take strongman, for example. My first competition, I had to make a certain weight. Obviously, then scales are very important because nothing really matters other than making that weight. So it's totally dependent on the reason for the weight loss. If it's just to look better, I try not to use them too much, and I don't set much store by them. I refuse to do it any more often than every 4 weeks.
Yeah. And I mentioned before, you got some quite simple ways of doing all this. Have you found in your experience of working with people that sometimes they don't quite believe it's going to work because it is so simple? Because I know I did with EFT.
You know what? I think that's most things people get told when you're sort of emotionally invested in something and you can't work out why you haven't been able to do something, and then someone says it's this really simple way of doing it, you just have to stick to it. You kind of feel a little bit attacked.
Yeah.
It's like, well, no, it can't be that easy. Like if it was that easy, I'd have done it by now. And it feels like the other person is sort of having a dig at you.
Yeah.
And it's not. Yeah, definitely. I think making it simple means it's easier to understand and follow, but sometimes you do get a little bit of backlash because people don't believe it is that simple. Sometimes you can struggle to get a buy-in from it. Yes,
if it's not, I think something that I heard my parents say a lot of the time, so if I was at school, if it's not hard, it's not worth it. And so that mentality is almost kind of programmed into us. So that when someone does try and say, actually, it's just this, this, and this, you're like, no. No.
Yeah. I think also, I know my dad very British mentality of his generation is, if you want something, you work harder for it. Like,
Yes.
smarter is not an option. You just have to grind it out and it will come.
Yeah.
And I think that's still quite ingrained in a lot of people.
Yeah.
And it took me a long time to get over the fact sometimes you just have to be a bit smarter with what you're doing, not just keep putting more and more effort in.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. So you must hear an awful lot of myths about weight and weight loss. What are some of the most popular ones that you've come into contact with?
I think the top 3 on popular fitness myths or popular fat loss myths is you can't eat late at night because your body stops processing things. It's why you get overweight. And your body, you still breathe when you go to sleep. Like, your body is still working properly when you sleep.
Yeah.
You don't worry. It's kind of, you don't take the TV socket out of the wall because you're worried it's going to burn the house down when you sleep. Like, it's the same thing. Your body's still going to digest when you sleep, same as when you're awake. And the other one, recently it's not been so bad, but you need to avoid carbohydrates. And the big one, you need to avoid sugar, because those things make you overweight. It's the same as anything. Too much of anything will make you overweight. It's really hard to eat too much protein, because it fills you up a lot more than carbs, fats, or sugars. You eat too many calories of anything, at some point you will gain weight. Time of day is irrelevant, amount of meals is irrelevant. Some make it easier to overeat. For example, it's going to be easier for me to put on weight eating pizza and donuts than it is steak and veg. I'd be quite interested to know how much steak and veg I need to eat to put on weight. But you could do it. It's just some things obviously make it easier or harder. And same with sugar and carbs. If you're eating the right amount of calories to maintain your body weight, whether they're carbs, sugar, proteins, fats, you're going to struggle to put on weight because you're not eating enough total energy to grow.
Yeah. And with regards to the, because this is something that crops up quite a lot, is this daily allowance of calories, and it's so much for men, it's so much for women. Is there like a standard scale you stick to, or again, is it just very personal per person?
No, so you've got quite a bit that goes into how much each person requires to maintain, lose, or gain weight. And the standard amounts that the government have put out, I got a little bit of an issue with, because it's for a time when people were more active. So like the maintenance of 2,500 for a man, 2,000 for a woman, other than being very generic and not taking into account anything, it was based off the time where we were moving more, whereas people move less now. I just take the guideline away and tell people to go and get, it's very easy to work out your calories. There's plenty of calculators online, or you could just watch your weight for 4 weeks. So say you're eating 2,000 calories a day for a week, for 4 weeks, sorry. How does your weight respond over those 4 weeks? If you're a very active person, you're going to need a lot more calories than someone that's very, very underactive. Daily movement is a massive driver for the amount of calories you need, because I can't think of the studies at all at the minute, but some people vary by up to 2,000 calories a day just in daily movement. That's not factoring training sessions or anything like that. You've also obviously got age, height, weight. Obviously, a bigger individual is going to need a lot more calories than a smaller one. So if you get a woman that's 6'6", she's going to need more calories than a man that's 5'1". It's very individual, person to person. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend people go off of what the government suggests on the 2005 or 2000. Little plug, but if they wanted to find out, they could visit the Fat Loss Academy, where there is a calculator that will help them very quickly. It takes 40 seconds.
There you go, folks. You heard it here. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? How we do sort of take for gospel things that have been put out, which actually were based on quite a long time ago, and we are very, very sedentary now. I mean, I
also think it's a source, because it's coming from the government. It's kind of like, I don't know if you've ever seen in programs where someone puts on a big high-vis jacket, gets a clipboard, and then tells people what to do, and they listen because he looks important. I think because the source seems credible, we listen to it straight away, and that's it. And the problem is such a wide outreach from when the government put out something, everyone's going to hear it. So then it's harder to sort of take it back.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So when working with people, Kieran, who's kind of like your ideal client?
This one I took a little bit of time considering. Had a little think about ideal clients recently, and to me, it is someone that's tried every diet out there and failed, and is willing to learn. Because if you're willing to learn, and if you've tried and failed every diet out there, you know it doesn't work. You know that these ways don't work for you. You're not invested in anything. You're kind of like a blank canvas, but you've already made a load of mistakes where you might have learnt lessons. So if you've tried and failed diets, you know what does and doesn't work for you, or you're probably more likely going to know what doesn't work for you. But that is a fantastic place to be, because you know not what to do on the next attempt. And if I can get someone to listen and to engage with what I ask them to do, I'm going to get better outcomes with people. Yeah.
That's really interesting you say that, the whole being coachable thing. I think that's so important in so many areas, because people do, and myself included, we approach situations with a preconceived idea of what we think is how it works. Yes. And sometimes that can kind of close us off a little bit to trying it, particularly if it flies in the face of what we think we know, because no one likes to be wrong.
I've actually got a fantastic example of that, and not in fat loss sense, just in a personal training sense. And I find ladies so much better to train than men, because ladies will listen when you give them coaching cues and tell them maybe something's not quite right, whereas a guy that's been going to the gym for 5 years that thinks he's got his technique nailed down, he'll get offended when you tell him it could be done better, or that's going to lead to a long-term injury. And it's really hard to make changes with people, because obviously I've got to take into account what people want, as well as me knowing what I would do with them. It's very important they're a part of the process, and I keep it goal orientated for them. So if someone tells me it doesn't matter what I've told them, they still want to do it this way, I will keep telling them, oh, we could probably make this tweak or this change, but I'm still going to try, I've still got to appease them. It's very hard when someone's decided that you're completely incorrect, they don't want to listen to you. Half the time you kind of wonder why they've come to you in the first place.
Yeah.
But it's, even people that don't want to listen straight away, a lot of the time you just need to find the right way to approach them. It's more a communication thing than they don't want to listen.
Yeah, that's a good point. So can you share some feedback you've received with some of the people you've worked with?
Yeah, so I've had probably the nicest bit of feedback I've had is that the changes we've made have been life-changing, and not from purely a fat loss point of view, but from a mentality point of view. So one lady I've got came to me, and she wasn't in a great place mentally, and she's now, you see it when she turns up, the difference in posture and in facial expressions. So like, she rocks up, she's happy, this is her happy place, but she's now leaving happy and she's a happy person. Shoulders are up and chest is up rather than being slouched forward. So like, that's a completely different outlook on life. And another really nice one is I like to go with, so when people have started to adjust to tracking a calorie intake, I like to try and make people then realize it's flexible. You don't have to have the same amount every day in order to get results. As long as you've got the same total energy intake coming in, you can have different calories on different days, which means you could work your week to your favor. If you like to go out at the weekend, you can now make the weekend a part of the plan.
The good old days when we go out the weekend.
They're apparently coming back, so fingers crossed. I think we've got a barbecue lined up for the weekend, so
awesome.
It'll be semi-socializing, a little bit of normality. But like the impact of finding out you can still have a life and a weekend and enjoy foods and drinks you like, but still also get results. You just need to know the right way to do it. Like, that's quite empowering for someone.
Yes, and actually that's probably makes it even more sustainable, because I think a lot of people I know I do, I fucking hate dieting, even the word diet fills me with dread and fear, and I just don't like
die in it, hasn't it?
the first 3 words, first 3 letters are die. So, but when you sort of realize that you don't have to rule your life with an iron fist, because quite honestly, who wants to live like that?
Oh,
And
exactly.
you do have this flexibility, it suddenly takes the pressure off.
Yeah, definitely. So I mean, I go through phases because I like to enjoy my food. Ever since I was younger, I can eat a lot, and it's really hard trying to rein my appetite in. So I get it when people say they're hungry a lot. Like, if you're not eating the right foods, your appetite's going to get even worse.
Yeah.
You're not drinking enough water, your appetite gets worse. So I go through periods where I relax a little, I let myself put on a bit of weight, and start of this year, I decided if there's a chance of me competing, one thing I'm going to have to do to get into the weight class I want is bring my weight back down. I've been pretty lackadaisical with it. I've been very up and down with my consistency, and the weight's come down because at the end of the day, I've got the total energy intake right. It might not be as quickly as I aimed for it or wanted it, but I've still managed to get it to come down because I've enjoyed the process. So those rapid binges that were coming in before the year, those have been somewhat curtailed, not entirely. Had a little bit of extra ice cream when I shouldn't have, but it's sometimes when your goal isn't fat loss and it's just maintenance, you can allow yourself to go up and down a little bit.
Yeah.
But you also need to have your goals set as to knowing when enough is enough.
Yeah, and I think a key word you said there, Kieran, was enjoyment. If you're not enjoying it, then you're not going to keep it up at all in any way.
No, definitely not. Not for the long term.
Yeah.
People can put up with a certain amount of pain in the short term, but then as soon as you get to a place where the pain is worse than how you feel about your body, you switch it back up and the process begins again normally.
Yeah. And I think this is, from what I've seen, this seems to be why people are continually dieting, because one day they wake up, and I've done this myself. You wake up, you look in the mirror, you try and get some trousers on, you think, good, these are shrunk in the wash. Good Lord, what's happened? And suddenly the pain of that is much worse than the pain of going on a diet. And so you go on a diet and you hit the gym, you do everything you think you're supposed to do, and then you see a little bit of weight loss, and suddenly that intense pain eases, and then the pain of dieting or gymming is worse than the pain of what you see in the mirror, and that's when you stop. So that's from what I can see, that's why you get these yo-yo diets going on. Is that something you'd agree with?
Yeah, definitely. And it's one of I quite like focusing on creating or progressing habits, because obviously habits are things we do subconsciously. So if I've got someone that I'll go back to client X, he loves drinking, so that's something he'll do unconsciously. If he goes out to the local football club or wherever, he will drink. So to begin with, we looked at changing what he was drinking, because if there's less calories in what he's drinking, theoretically we reduce his energy intake. He's still doing the same habit, but we've adjusted it a touch in order to try and get some results. If that works for him, that's then sustainable. He can carry on doing that. If it doesn't work for him, then we look at other habits that we might be able to change to get those results. It needs to be something you can see yourself doing for the long term. Yeah,
really important. So we've mentioned Brian Shaw. First off, I mean, how did you get into working with Brian? Just out of curiosity.
So it was actually a coaching seminar.
Yeah.
So there was a gym down in London. I think it was performance nutrition. Performance nutrition or something. It was a gym I had never heard of. It just randomly up popped on Facebook, your chance to hear Brian Shaw speak. And it was a 2-hour seminar, and I thought, like, that's incredible. I've never really explored anywhere in London other than obviously near Waterloo Station and around the pubs. So that was a little challenge for me on its own. I'm quite a sort of little town hermit. I don't explore very much. I like just training, working. So that was a little adventure on its own.
Yeah.
So that crops up, and it wasn't really a choice. Like, I had to go see him. after I paid for the tickets, I then found out there's potential, if I take my gym gear, he's going to run through two strongman events and he's going to give coaching on it. So there was then no chance that I wasn't taking my gym kit. And at the time, I'd only recently started training strongman. I don't think I'd been long into it, but I'd always loved Brian Shaw.
Yeah.
And yeah, we got down there. He is a monster. I am, to put it into perspective, I'm 6'1". I weigh about 100 kilos, about 225 pounds. And he was actually getting a massage at the time, led on a therapist bed. And the therapist looked small next to him stood up. And then when he rocked out of the room, he's twice as wide as me. He's like me and a half. And he's looking, I felt like a child again.
Yeah.
I've not felt that way in years. And then I managed to get a selfie with him at the end, which I sent you over. And he's crouching down in that picture just to get in the photo with me. It's incredible. And I was very lucky to meet a few other strong men a couple of years ago in Southampton after a competition. They're all giants. Like, you don't realise how big these people are because when they're together, they're all big. You put them next to normal sized people of the general public, you cannot believe the difference.
Yeah. I can
It's
remember.
incredible.
It's funny, I can remember years ago, I used to live in Guildford, and there was the Guildford Spectrum popped up, and we started having basketball games. I can remember going to a basketball game, and there was one lad playing, and I was saying to my friend, "Oh, look at the little one." The little one was actually 6'3" or something.
Yeah.
I was like, oh.
It's just one of those sports. It attracts the taller people. So when you look at it, they're all tall. They all look quite well proportioned. It's very deceptive.
So, Kieran, other than Brian Shaw, has there been anyone else who's been like a really specific role model for you and has helped shape your success and help shape your journey to where you are now?
I've got quite a few influences. The biggest one early on was actually my university lecturer, Martin Skivington, from Solent University, and he's just incredible. His attention to detail, phenomenal. We used to not overly enjoy having him walk behind us because he used to assess our postures, and if he was with other students to help them learn, he'd point out what was wrong with your walking posture. And it's actually something I do walking down the street to this day. I assess walking postures just because it's something he used to do. I don't know how often he did it, but he did it once or twice with me and a few of my friends.
Yeah.
But he actually sat on the, I'm not sure if he still does, sat on the reps board. He helped actually put the guidelines in for personal trainers.
Okay.
It's like, to get that level of education under someone that high up was completely invaluable. Since leaving uni, there's been quite a few sources that, for anyone listening, I'd recommend going and listen to. You've got James Smith at the minute. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's quite a controversial personal trainer. He's absolutely ballooning up, very big. But he's a very smart man, but he puts it in very simple terms that a lot of people are going to be able to understand, which is, it's really, you listen to a lot of top level people and they're talking their own language.
Yeah.
They forget the people they're trying to reach and help. Well, maybe some of them aren't even trying to reach and help that level of people, but everyone else, like, the information's going over everyone else's head. James, massive influence on me in terms of how I like to be, is trying to take some of that information out of the air and package it up together so that everyone can sort of enjoy it and learn from it. He's got two fantastic books out, which you've got Not Another Diet Book, which for anyone looking to drop body fat wants a read. Phenomenal. I read it. I mean, it goes very much against what I like and what I believe. So, I mean, there's a little bit of bias in there anyway, because of course I'm going to enjoy something that is along my own philosophies. But he's just brought another one out called Not a Life Coach, which goes a little bit more sort of down psychology and making life choices, and that, absolutely phenomenal. And then two guys in the industry that are kind of like gods to me, at least, is you've got Alan Aragon and Lyle McDonald, and they're just both sort of, they are top tier nutrition guys. I think Lyle McDonald also does training based stuff, but he's more known for his fat loss information. he's just brought out a huge book on women's training and the differences that women face dieting versus men.
Okay.
So absolutely invaluable resource. I mean, I'm only halfway through it. There's a lot of science in it, but you can skip over the science and go to the bits that make sense. But it's a very hard read. So that's going to be for people committed to reading a book.
So with that being said, segues neatly. With relation to your own personal journey, if you had to recommend just one book for people to read, what would it be and why?
In regards to losing fat loss, I'd actually suggest Dr. Brian Wansink, and it's a book called Mindless Eating.
Okay.
This helped me not only with my habits, but just understanding how much of what we do is already predetermined based on the triggers we've set ourselves and our habits. So it looks into some really incredible things. I'll just give one example. I won't spoil the book, but one of the things he looks into, one of the studies mentioned in the book, is they looked at prisoners in an American prison, and they had an average stay of 6 months. So they went in, 6 months stay minimum, went out, and the average weight gain of the prisoners was, I think it was half a stone or a stone and a half. It was, I'm not 100% sure on the amount, but they all gained weight.
Yeah.
And they asked them why they thought they gained weight. And the majority of them put it down to the fact that when they were out of prison, they were wearing tight-fitting clothing. Whereas when they went into prison and they lived in prison, they all had big baggy jumpsuits, so they couldn't tell. So even though their food intake was obviously moderated somewhat by the prison, they were still able to eat more and put on weight because they had no gauge of where they were. Carries over nicely to me as a kid, and I'm sure plenty of other people, is when you start to put on weight, you go out and buy baggier clothes because it makes you feel better. Problem is, it hides it and it stops you from realizing you're still putting on weight until that gets tight. There's loads of really interesting little studies mentioned and been designed to just explore subconscious reasons to putting on fat.
Yeah.
And it's eye-opening. It kind of reminded me of Channel 4, and I don't often like TV shows, but Channel 4 did a series called Secret Eater, which, if you haven't seen it, go and watch it. It's phenomenal. It's probably one of the best information documentary style things like mainstream media's put out. It's a very unbiased approach to looking at it. From what I can see, there's no hidden agendas with the show. They just wanted to show secret eating, and it's really interesting.
Secret eating, I like that. That's funny, because I mean, it was funny about the what you were saying with trying to gauge where you're at, because when I put on a lot of weight, I convinced myself, that it was bloating. I was something I was eating that was bloating. But then, 6 months down the line, you're like, oh, okay, maybe it's not bloating. But I just part of me couldn't believe, because I'd spent most of my youth very, very active. I had horse and competed and all that sort of stuff, and I could eat anything I wanted to. I was one of those metabolisms built like a toothpick, and I could eat anything. And part of me couldn't actually believe that I was able to put on weight almost. So I was in denial for a very long time about it.
That's another thing that's really hard for people to comprehend, is when you're younger and you're at school, you have less obligations. So your spare time is spent doing activities you want, like horse riding or going out playing football, walking, gym. It typically is a lot more active for more people. Yeah. But then suddenly you've got work and other like kids, and your responsibilities change, and you don't really consider the impact it has on your daily calorie burn through movement. So metabolisms typically don't vary that much. Like your resting metabolic rate, the rate that two people of the same weight would need, same height, same age, it doesn't change that much. It's like 150 calories. It's like a spoon of peanut butter, but it's the daily movement that does it for people. So when you progress from secondary school, you end up moving less and less and less. You end up having more money as well, because you've got all this income come in. So then you can go out, you can drink, you can go to restaurants. So you've expended less, but now you're eating more.
Yeah.
And it slowly creeps on, but you don't feel like you've done anything different because it's taken 10 years to make that change.
Yeah.
So that's very interesting. You said that, yeah.
Yeah, and they've obviously got the curse of Deliveroo and Just Eat now, so you don't even have to go through the stress of ordering on the phone. You can just press a button.
You know what? I don't think we get those in Whitchurch. We've only recently been able to get Domino's delivered to the area. If you ask Elle, it's the worst thing that ever happened to Overton. Like, she hates Domino's as a result of it. But yeah, like we're about 20 years behind everyone else in terms of food delivery, so we're all right.
It's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing.
It feels like it when you're hungry, though.
Yeah, well, yeah. So, Kieran, love, what are your plans for the rest of the year? I mean, obviously things are going to start opening up a little bit, hopefully soon. And have you got anything particular coming up for you?
Well, the immediate plans is to get back to my in-person training, which is an absolute godsend. I don't know how I haven't gone crazy without it. It's definitely my biggest passion. On top of that, I'm going to be looking to carry on building. So the Fat Loss Academy is just one huge fat loss resource. It's something I'm constantly updating, constantly putting more in. So, example, it's everything in one place you would need if you were looking to make changes to your life to try and lose body fat. There's different strategies in there at the minute. So there's different, example, one of them is called television time tweaks. One thing I found was when I was busier, I didn't want to not watch TV. So I used to put my exercise bike in front of the TV so that I wouldn't even be moving hard, literally sort of at speed, just burning some gentle calories. It was a sustainable habit I could do that worked for me at the time. I don't do it now. I don't have an exercise bike. But at the time, that was something that worked for me. There's recipes, there's workouts, there's calorie calculators. I'm going to continue adding content to that and looking to grow that. At the minute, it's not being advertised too much because it's very fresh. I want it to be not perfect, not polished, because it's never going to be that because I'm constantly trying to do better with it. But I want it to add real value when I market it. So I'll be looking to carry on building that. I mean, you can join it now and there is loads in there, but there's going to be more. Yeah,
lovely. And we'll get a link for that in just a moment, my lovely.
Brilliant. And then I'm also going to be looking to run at some point in the next couple of months a 12-week fat loss challenge using the academy based off of some very simple principles. We're going to see who can do the best with what I've got. It's not going to be judged on scale weight. We're going to be judging it based off of where you start to where you finish. Haven't decided who's going to judge it yet. Obviously me, but I might get a little panel together.
Yeah.
And it's just the thing I've started to. I didn't like challenges originally, but one thing I really enjoy about them now is it adds a level of adherence and accountability.
Yeah.
I mean, people love a prize, so just having something to work for. I've kind of gone 360 on that. I used to hate them. Now starting to really get into them, I can see the benefits of them.
Yeah.
So that's me for the next 12 months, I think.
Ah, fantastic. It sounds really exciting. So where can people go to find out a bit more about you? You mentioned the Fat Loss Academy, so drop some links on me.
So we got fatlossacademy.uk. And then if anyone wanted to check out Instagram, we've got KFPT Fat Loss Academy. Or on Facebook, just search KFPT FLA.
Fantastic. And as always, I will pop those links in the comments so people can just click on them as well. Fantastic. So Kieran, before we finish up, thank you for spending so much time with me. It's been really interesting. Before we finish up, I do like to end the interviews with something that people can action or something you can share that's going to help them implement some stuff. Is there something in particular you were wanting to share with people before we finish up?
Yeah, so I'm going to go with, if you're looking for fat loss, it does not matter what method you choose to go to for you. If you believe it's the right method for you, I'm going to suggest something called being analytical with your fat loss efforts.
Okay.
All it is giving something the time to work before making a choice on whether to drop it or not. So whatever you decide to go with, let's say, not the biggest fan, but let's say I'm going to go with keto. You're going to see very quick results in the first week. Give it 4 weeks. See how it does. You get to the end of 4 weeks. If it's got you closer to the result you want, fantastic, you stay with it. If it hasn't, you need to decide which part of no you're in. You've got maintenance, which is you've not put on any weight. And for most people looking to drop body fat, this is another big win because you've stopped putting on weight. Like, you've reversed all of that bad cycle that's going on. So it's not terrible. It's just not getting you closer to where you want to be. And you make small tweaks based off of what you've been doing because you're nearly there. You've almost got it right. If obviously you've gone the other way and you're further away from your goal, you either need to completely drop it and make another tweak, or you just decide what you need to change with what you've decided to do to restart that back closer towards your goal. And that is an ongoing process. That's not, you do this once, it's all rosy, good. You're going to get a point where progress is going to slow or where it's going to stall. So you need to keep doing that time after time. Same with anything. If you want to improve, at some point, what you're doing is only going to be enough to keep you where you're at, and you still need to improve. You still need to change further to get you onto the next part of your journey.
Yeah, that's what was it? What you track and measure improves, but you know, how often do we track and measure stuff? You know.
Yes, definitely. Okay, I typically wouldn't recommend keto. I go calorie counting. I feel you can work more foods into your diet that you enjoy, which again makes it more sustainable.
Yeah.
But whatever any of the listeners choose, that's how they want to go about analysing its success.
Yeah, and actually, that's quite an interesting point. What's your thought? I was gonna finish up. I thought the question. What's your thought on because with diets in particular, it's very much the focus tends to be on stuff you can't eat. So for a lot of people, it's very much about deprivation. Whereas I personally think a better way of doing it, and what seems to work for me in all areas of like habits, is to introduce better stuff, and the not so good stuff just kind of gets pushed out. Is that something that you see? Is that something you recommend?
So I will always recommend, doesn't matter what the goal, you work in some foods you like. Every single day you work at least one thing into your day that you're going to enjoy. Thing is, take chocolate, take donuts. I love donuts.
Oh yeah.
You would look at donuts on the face of it. I'm trying to lose body fat. Why am I eating a donut? But mentally, that donut's actually doing some work for me. That's making me enjoy what I'm having. It might not be the most optimal of foods to have put in, but that's keeping me on task. With water intake, for example, a lot of people underdrink, and that's one of the reasons they're hungry so much and overeat, is because you don't get enough water in, and the signals between hunger and thirst are very similar. Well, I'm not a huge water fan, which means if I'm trying to put just plain water into my diet, I'm probably going to struggle. So I like to have a weak squash, so like blackcurrant squash, or it might not be as pure as water, but I can get in anywhere from 3 to 4.5 litres a day if I drink squash. I will be lucky to get 1.5 litres in if I drink water.
Yeah. So
sometimes the best option is the one that's not necessarily the best option. It's the one that's going to get you the most consistent habit.
Yeah. Really, really important point. Kieran, thank you so much. It's been so much fun chatting with you. Thank you for spending the time with us. I appreciate you. I appreciate the time you've spent. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Awesome stuff. Take care, lovely.
See you later. Bye.